So I'm really honoured to be here. My husband and I came to the school in June, and on the ferry on the way back he said, "When can we go back again?" And here we are, sooner than you think. I've really enjoyed this morning, and some of the things in Chip's presentation really hit home to me. And one of the things that occurred to me to share is that I'm really lucky. I'm really lucky, because I really don't know what's happened to me, and so I don't think about it too much. I just follow it. It occurs to me that it might be helpful to just give you a little bit of background. So, as Chip said, I've been around the principles for about 4 years. I won't repeat the story for those that heard it over lunch, but basically I didn't really embrace the principles at all when I first came across it. But I was very fortunate to meet somebody. I'm from an IT background and project management, and I was very fortunate to come across somebody who'd been in addiction for most of his life, and been in and out of prison for most of his life, and he was 3 years in recovery when I met him, and I was just totally inspired by him. So nothing to do with the principles, just a human being that I was blown away with how amazing he was. And through him I came to meet a number of other people who are also equally amazing. And I guess one of my first insights about this work that I'm doing now was that I couldn't believe that addiction was a disease that people had to live with forever. I just didn't think that was right, and I wanted to do something about that. And I started on this journey. And when I started working with people with addictions and with all sorts of mental health issues and so on, I just found the most helpful conversation happened to be the one that says that the world works from the inside out. And it didn't occur to me to talk about anything else. So I didn't so much transition as just suddenly be dropped into this world where that's just the only thing to talk about. And as Chip talked so movingly this morning about the changes that we see when we work with people who've suffered so much and caused suffering to other people as well, it's sort of a no-brainer. I mean, anybody who works in this field, and I know there's other people in this room, always feel blessed. We walk out of prison at the end of the day and we go, "Oh, haven't we had a fantastic day?" And there's not many people that say that. And I could tell you lots of stories, lots of amazing stories about the transformations that we've seen in the men and in the people who come to visit our programme as well, who go on to do amazing things. But I was reflecting on what's really meaningful to me, and what came out of this morning was not having to make meaning of our insights and of what things are. To me, it looks like you see something, you see it all. So we don't have to think, "Oh yeah, I had this amazing insight about feelings and now I want to know what consciousness is." You see one thing, you see it all. That's how it looks to me. So for instance, I recently was in a situation where I saw that I never went to neutral. Like, my mind was always on tick over. And in the past I've celebrated that, like really celebrated. I thought it was amazing, multitasker. I used to have a queue of people at my desk, and the email going and the phone ringing, and I was great at solving all the problems. And of course, when I came into this work, that slowed down quite dramatically, but I'm still a person who does a lot. And a few months ago, one of the things that I noticed with the men in prison is they sleep. They start sleeping. Like, we work with them, and then you say, "How did you sleep?" And they go, "Oh, I've had amazing sleep." And I was quite jealous because I never sleep. Like, I struggle to go to sleep. I used to get about 4 hours sleep. My mind's always racing. I wake up and my thoughts are on me. And it never worried me, but I was like, it'd be nice, wouldn't it, to sort of be like those men and have a good sleep. Anyway, recently I realised that my mind was always in tick over, and that actually there was another thing below tick over. There was neutral. I didn't know that. And when I had that moment of realisation, I didn't do anything with that. I just had this moment of realisation. Oh wow, my mind's always in tick over, and there's something underneath tick over. And from that night in September till now, I've had one sleepless night. I have really deep, sound, beautiful sleep. I didn't do anything with that insight. I didn't work it. I didn't try to make sense of it. I just saw this, and then coincidentally, I had sleep. So that's how it appears to me, is that you see one thing and you see everything, so you don't have to keep revisiting it. Just more and more reveals itself. I want to say, like, when you're ready, or when it's ready, I don't really know, but it just constantly seems to reveal itself to me. And that, to me, is how it looks to the men. There was a massive shift when Jan and Chip came and visited the prison. Up until that moment, I'll tell you the story of when I first started there. I'd worked with all these people in recovery. I loved them. I thought they were amazing. I saw the potential in them. And I had this real passion about changing stigma and changing the way mental health is basically treated. And I was just following that. And I ended up working in prison. And on my first day in this prison, we had this room which is on the wing. So the classroom is on the wing where the men live. So they're all there with the tops off, hanging over the railings, and got radios playing and so on and so forth. And I'd gone in with my big book of all my notes of what I was going to talk about, and we have them for 3 hours. And I was standing outside the room, absolutely petrified, and whenever there's an incident, the men are locked up longer, and there had been an incident, so they hadn't been released yet for their breakfast, and they were all banging the cell doors with their cups, like on the films. And I was standing there thinking, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? I was totally intimidated. I really thought that I'd be like flying around the world speaking in Hawaii in plush hotels. And here I was in this dirty, smelly prison, frightened to death, didn't know what I was doing, didn't know what I was going to talk about. Anyway, so I hung on in there, and they released the men. And this great big man came, and my past has a lot of violence in it, and a lot of trauma. And this great big man, who looked very scary to me, came, and he said, "Can I have a look at the chicks, miss?" And I went, I don't think you're on my list. And he said, no, I just want to look at the chicks. So I thought, I you know, in England, chicks is a slang word for women. So I thought, I don't know what to do, so I let him in. And he came into the classroom, and it's a tiny little classroom, and you know, hard chairs, and with a little tiny window, and the flip chart was in front of the window. And he walked in, and he went to the window, and I thought he's going to look at the female officers. And on the window there was a nest, and a pigeon sat on the eggs. And I don't know that man's name, but he saved our programme, because I saw how much invisible thinking and stigma and fear that I had. And there was this wonderful human being who was getting out in a week. He told me then, I'm getting out in a week, and I wanted to see if the chicks had hatched before I got out. So I carried on teaching, and I'm grateful to him. You know, I don't even know his name. But it helped me then to greet the men, you know, from a place of love and a place of lack of judgment. And I taught there for a couple of months, and I had some people with me, and it wasn't working out very well. It was actually really hard work. I had 3 classes on the bounce, and I was there with my notes all the time. And then one night, I saw that Jan and Chip Chipman were in London. And I normally delete those emails. I used to go into prison on Tuesday and Thursday, and I used to stay over on the Wednesday night, which is when they were in London. And I thought, oh, it's Jan and Chip Chipman. Oh, that's worth a go, you know. So I thought I might as well go down to London and watch them, and then I'm back in prison the next day at 7:00. So I go down. And it was just a normal community night, and they were speaking, and I'd never heard Jan speak before. And I was in floods of tears listening to Jan, and I just was so touched by both of them. And I had this thought, I wonder if they'd come to visit the men. And before you knew it, I was out my chair. I said to Chip, would you come and visit my men? And he said, oh, I don't know about the logistics, speak to Jan. Of course. So I asked Jan, and she asked me all the details, and she said, I don't know if it's possible, and so on. And I had to race off to get a train. So I raced off to London Euston, the train station. And as it happened, the train was an hour and a half delayed, so I didn't get in that morning till 1:30, and you know, I was tired, and I heard nothing from Jan, so I thought, oh well, it was worth a shot, right? And I wake up at 6:00, and there's an email from Jan, we're on the train. And bless their hearts, you know, they came in, and they were at the prison, and me and my colleague Anna Debenham I kept pinching myself, thinking I'm going to wake up and I'm still on the train station, like I'm dreaming this. And they came in, and we decided we'd get as many men as we could into that little tiny room, and they came into that small room where the pigeons were nesting. And Jan, bless her, brought an umbrella, and you know, that's not legal in the prison, and there's so many things happened, but it just somehow miraculously just worked. And they took the class with me. Well, they said they took the class with me, but you know, I was just sitting there in awe, really. But I noticed that they just were with the men. They just talked to them, and there's stories from the men still talk about that visit. A man reconnected with his family because of it, because of something that Jan said to him. Another man, Chip, went and had a one-to-one with one of the guys. I mean, it was like a dream. But I noticed that they were just with the men. And I'll tell you this, even though it's embarrassing. They mentioned Sid Banks, and you know, I said that I didn't like the principles. Well, I really didn't like Sid Banks. Like, it was just like, don't I don't understand any of those books. And they mentioned Sid Banks, and one of the men said, "Who's that?" And I was feeling so embarrassed, thinking, "Oh my gosh." And the other one went, "You know, the bloke who wrote the book." So I realised two things. One is, all I need to do is be with these people. And two is, I need to share Sid's story. And literally from that moment, again, they saved my programme, because after that I stopped making all my notes. It's a research project, so I was very obsessed with making notes. And I stopped making the notes. I sat with the men. I shared the story of Sid's experience, and they gobble up the books. They just read the books constantly. Men drop out of the group, and then they read Enlightened Gardener, and they go, "Oh, can I come back on the group? I know what it's about now," and things like that. It's amazing. So I'm always grateful to Chip and Jan for that. And we came to Salt Spring in June, and I once again I thanked Chip and Jan for coming, and I spoke to Jan about it, and Jan said, no. It's always been our dream to go into a UK prison. You made our dream come true. And I saw in that moment, we fill our heads with what things mean, and what we can do, and what we can't do, and what we have to do, and who we have to teach, and a load of old rubbish. But actually, just following whatever it is that's working through us, always. And it looks to some people like insights. I didn't really know what insights were. To me, it just looked like something I had to do. Just following that and staying with that, it unveils itself, it reveals itself. And that's still now the things that are happening in my life. I get caught up and think I've got to do this or I've got to go there. I just don't think that we have to make sense of it. I've come to see more and more the mystery of it, and that we're all part of that mystery, and that everyone I speak to, whether it's my guys in prison, whether it's the girls that work with me, whether it's business people, whether it's the people in this room, we're all part of the same thing, and that mystery is working for all of us, and we probably won't ever know what that is. So that was meaningful to me. So.